My name is Nicole Denny, and I deeply regret my abortion. Leading up to 16 and getting an abortion, I was a very withdrawn teenager. I didn't have a whole lot of friends. A lot of that stemmed from the experiences that I had as a child, which were being molested by many people, some family members, some friends of the family, and boys in school and boys in the neighborhood that I lived in. And when I was 16, I fell in love with a 22-year-old. Not long into knowing him, I was pregnant. So I knew I had to tell my mom. She asked me, what was I going to do? Coming from my family, who very much put a lot of importance on education and doing, what was considered the right thing. I knew what she wanted to hear. I wanted to keep the baby. It was like the God that I didn't know was trying to get me to just say, I want to keep the baby. But I couldn't bring my mouth to say it. And she finally said, Nicole, you have to make a decision. Finally, I said, I'll have an abortion. And I saw her breathe a sigh of relief and say, I'll make the appointment for you. And I instantly hated her. Like she was the one that forced me to say that. She scheduled the appointment and we drove there together. I couldn't bring myself to be awake and aware of what I was doing. And I think I had convinced myself that if I were asleep and if I wake up, it'll just be over and I can just check out of reality during this time and it'll be fine. Unfortunately, that wasn't what happened. I went to sleep, and when I woke up in the recovery room, I saw other women, and everyone was looking down. Some were softly crying, some were just looking down, looking at their hands, and I just started crying, and I started crying harder, and then I just started wailing, and I noticed other women looking at me. They were growing concerned. They started crying harder, and some people kind of ran in, pinpointed the person that was causing the scene, and wheeled my bed out. And when they took me to the other room, there was a counselor in there waiting, and she said, what is wrong? Why are you upset? And I told her, I don't understand why I feel so bad about what I've done. And she was sitting next to me and she was patting my hands and she said, that wasn't a baby. Your hormones are all out of whack right now and you are going to feel all kinds of things. And within 1 to 2 weeks, those feelings are going to go away. I promise you. And I was so thankful for 1 to 2 weeks to come and go. But they did. And I didn't feel better. I felt worse. And then 4 weeks came, and 6 weeks came, and 6 months came. And I was depressed. And then a year came, and I tried to kill myself, and it didn't work. And so I just did what I've heard thousands of women by now say. I just stuffed it deep down. I started drinking a lot. I started doing drugs, trying to stuff that gaping hole as much as I could. One particular couple, David and Elisa, they were having their first baby. Elisa, went full term, and he was, delivered in the hospital. And he died quickly after due to complications with his lungs. And it really affected me. The day after he passed, I was sitting here in this living room and I was trying to spend alone time with God. And I heard God so clearly say, they didn't have a choice, but you did. And I was shocked because he was bringing this terrible thing back up that I did. And I couldn't hide from it anymore. I couldn't avoid it anymore. And he said, I want to take this from you once and for all. And I have a plan here, and if you would just trust me. it was like he obliterated all the walls that I had built around it, ripped all the calluses off. And so I fully surrendered everything. For days after, weeks after, I would like poke to see if the pain was still there, and it was gone completely. I could barely talk. I was crying so hard, telling them about the abortion I had. And I just kept saying, I kept going back to the part of, I wouldn't have done this if my mom hadn't made me. And, I saw, Sandy, she kept, kind of furrowing her brow whenever I said that. By about the third week, I was like, well, as I said, I wouldn't have done it if my mom hadn't made me. And Sandy was like, Nicole, did your mom hold you down? And I was like, no, what a ridiculous question. Of course she didn't hold me down, but she made me. And she said, well, then how did she make you if she didn't hold you down? And for whatever reason, the Lord just made that click finally in my head that she didn't make me. Regardless of the pressure that I may have felt, I still made that choice. And all of a sudden, it was like the Holy Spirit just flooded all this knowledge into my mind. You made the choice. You haven't renounced this, as you haven't asked for forgiveness from this. You haven't forgiven yourself because you're blaming someone else. I mean, you can't heal from an area if you're refusing to accept any accountability for it. So I immediately did that. I was like, okay, wow, I accept my responsibility, and I forgave my mom and continued through the class. I said, I know we haven't talked about the abortion that I had when I was 16. I know it's been a long time, and I saw her get like really stiff. And I was like, but I just need to let you know, it's going to sound weird, but I forgive you. And I need to confess to you that I blamed you for all this time, and I hated you, and I'm so sorry, because it wasn't your fault. She said, I'm really glad that you told me. And she said, basically not a day goes by that I don't regret driving you there and being a part of that. And she said, I know that I wasn't the one that said you should get it, but I did want you to. And in my mind, I was saying, please let her choose abortion. And she said, I've never told anyone this, not even your stepdad, but I had an abortion when I was 19. She said, it still haunts me, and I have nightmares about it. And I said, Mom, you don't have to put up with that. I know that you love Jesus, and you're forgiven for that. And she said, I know I'm forgiven. I tell myself over and over, you're forgiven. And I just like sensed in that moment, and I was like, but you have to forgive yourself. And she just started crying. And she said, you're exactly right. I have to forgive myself. And we just prayed together in our car. And my mom, in a crazy twist of events, was the first woman that I led through post-abortive healing. If you have Jesus Christ, if you are covered in his blood, you were given dominionship back. You don't have to listen to the lies of the enemy. You can walk in your rightful inheritance, your rightful purpose, your rightful identity, which is that you are a cherished, adored, loved child of God.